interact with people who you know voted for this, right? If you are an LGBTQ person and you know someone in your family voted essentially against your rights, or you're a woman knowing that, this man was calling people the B word, J.D. Vance was literally calling Kamala Harris the trash and said, we're going to take out the trash. I know a lot of Black women were incredibly triggered by that. And if you then meet somebody and they voted for the people who called you trash, or if you're Puerto Rican, and someone voted that way, do you recommend, just from a psychological standpoint, being around them? We got the holidays coming up.
So I love that you asked this question because, there is a push, I think just a societal norm that if somebody is your family, that they are entitled to your time. And I think the answer is absolutely not. So if you are going into a situation where you have family members, where you have close friends who have voted in ways that are against you, like what you said, against your livelihood, and it's completely fine to not be around those people and to tell them why, to say, I have a problem with the way that you voted because it went against my very livelihood and I'm not going to be around you this holiday. I need to take some space for me. And I actually talk to, adults as well as advising parents for children. I mean, I think, I don't think that you should force children. I don't think you should force adults to be around people just because they're your family. I think there's a level of, need to establish boundaries. And if you feel like you need to establish boundaries with people, whether they're your family or not, I think you should very much be entitled to do so. And I think it may be essential for your mental health.
All right. Happy Sabbath to everyone. Happy Sabbath. Good to see you guys back again on another Friday evening here on Mount Carmel Ministries, MC Ministries for short. We are happy to have you guys here. And there's a lot tonight. There's a lot we're going to be talking about tonight. You guys saw the intro to this. And what you're hearing now is, hey, separate yourselves from your family, from your husbands, from your wives, from your children, from whomever. This coming holiday season, it doesn't make any sense for you to be around them if you know that they voted a certain type of way. If you know their political position and you don't like their political position and you didn't agree with their political position, then you need to say, hey, you know what? Find your space. I find my space. Because, we're just not going to work out well here in the same space. I feel really bad for husbands and wives who went different routes. I mean, it's apparent that we need Jesus in our lives. And tonight we have our co-hosts here tonight. We got Pastor Green with us. We got Pastor Cuke with us. And we're going to have a special guest in about another four minutes or so. He'll be joining us. Pastor James will be joining us from, and you guys know Pastor James. He's been on here before. And earlier today, we did a podcast earlier today. So you'll be seeing him from Advent Media today. So we are here in the very, very last days. We're living in it right now, and we are seeing those effects. And Pastor Green, I am sure that you have quite a bit to say about that.
Well, I always got a lot to say about some of everything, and sometimes it's not easily taken. But, one of the things that I do when I have a church. Right now, I don't have a church family, but in order to get to understand the members of the church, I will give them a temperament test, and the 4 basic temperaments is a sanguine. The opposite of that is the melancholy. Then you have the choleric, and then you have the phlegmatic. And I explain to them what each one of those temperaments, what it consists of, what it's like. But I make it very clear to them, nobody is 100% a choleric. Nobody is 100% a melancholy or a phlegmatic or a sanguine. Nobody is 100%, because if you were, you would be an awful, terrible person. Mm-hmm. We are a temperament mixture. And when I was listening to this lady and she was talking about, she would have to separate herself from members of the family simply because of the political stance that they took, that's very divisive. That's very divisive. I got members of my family that, you know, they cater to one political party or the other. But when we come together and we have our family reunions, we're all united. We do not allow political affiliations to divide us. And what she said, and I understand, you know, her point of view, you know, because, you know, Trump, you know, he said a lot of crazy things. He did a lot of crazy things, and you know, but you can't get caught up in these puppets, because as far as I'm concerned, Trump is a puppet, Kamala Harris is a puppet, and you don't get caught up in that, because whatever the folks behind the curtain are planning on doing, they're going to carry that out regardless of what puppet is sitting in that Oval Office.
True, very, very true, and very well said, I would say. Pastor Cuke?
Well, you know, I agree with Pastor Green that really we shouldn't get too caught up in this thing. I know one guy called me when I was pastoring in New York, and he said, well, anyone that votes Democrat is not a Christian and is essentially going to hell. Or,
Yeah, I've
in
seen
matter
that
of fact,
before.
you know, I gotta say that recently he called me again, and I thought he was calling to check on me. I hadn't heard from him for a long time. Turns out he called to encourage me to vote Republican. Have mercy.
Mm,
You know? So these folk are serious about that. And when she said that, a lot of folk take it seriously to separate from their family, you know, and allow this divisive spirit to be part to come and infiltrate their home. The truth is that, you know, this is really what the system is designed to do: divide and conquer. You
absolutely.
know, that are united. A family that's united is powerful. You know, these folk in the media are nothing but puppets who are pushing an agenda, you know, and they're spreading of lies and misinformation and so on. It's really something to weaken the people and to cause us to be at each other's throats, and families are separated. And this is part of the way that they keep us weak, keep us at each other's throat, and really from sitting down and really contemplating, working together to make society a better place. You know, we can't allow politics and allow even religion, you know.
Right.
When you look at the life of Christ, one of the things that made the folk mad was that he was mixing with everyone. He said, "You're with," and he was, you know, and let's be real, the publicans were terrible, and the tax collectors, they were terrible people. They were abusing their people. Many of them were ripping them off, and yet Christ was there with them,
And don't
because
forget,
we cannot.
Zacchaeus went up in that tree, man.
What's that?
Zacchaeus was up in the tree, remember? And he
Yeah.
said that I'm going to go home with you today. There's a lot of
Mhm.
people that didn't like that, because Zacchaeus was a tax collector.
Yeah.
Tax collector. That's right. And so, you know, that's support for what I'm saying. We cannot allow ourselves to be divided. These, you know, as you said, the puppet masters behind the scene are going to pull the strings, and really they have an agenda, and that agenda is going forward no matter who they put up front. And the fact is that we as a people, you know, the individuals at the on the grassroots level, we have to stay together. We have to work together. We have to keep our eyes open. Families need to stay together. Churches need to be strong and united, because really, to be honest with you, eventually they're coming after all of us. You know,
Yeah,
they're coming to.
regardless.
Right. You remember the Georgia Guidestone said that they're seeking to have a one world religion, one world police force, and to cut the population down to 500 million. What kind of craziness is that? But that's the kind of way they think. And I'll
You
leave it
know,
at that for some heavy stuff I'm going to lay on you guys later.
Well, you're a heavy brother.
yeah, we know you carry a lot of weight.
Yes,
Watch.
even though he doesn't look like it.
He doesn't look like he carries a lot of weight, but he carries a lot of weight.
I wish I did have some weight. You know, I was standing outside one of the churches, and one of the members saw me, and the wind was blowing, and they looked so concerned. They said, "Pastor, the wind is blowing."
You're about to get blown away. Huh?
Blown away, my brother. You got to stand on some concrete. Okay. So tonight, you know, you guys kind of set it up already, right? But there's a lot of things that was said just now. A lot of things that was said in reference to puppetry, in reference to you know, these guys being front men. You know, they're just being put at the front. So if that is the case, and because that may be the case, let me ask this question, because as Seventh-day Adventists, and we're gonna pull up some scripture, and we're gonna, you know, kind of make that be our guide for this evening. But as Seventh-day Adventists, should we use the pulpit then for political advancement? Right? Should the pulpit be a place? And I'm specifying our church, because I see this happening in many other churches today, that the pulpit is now being used as a place to drive political gain, you know, to drive political advancement. And you know, we're in a time where your voice as a pastor can influence many others. So should that be a place where we use the pulpit to push an agenda, a political agenda at that?
You know, the thing is that it's
Pastor Green.
Pastor Green?
Yeah, Pastor Kirk, you made mention of the fact that all of this jostling, you know, back and forth is not only making the American people weak, but it is also making the members of our church weak. When we are depending on political parties and we're not depending on God, that's making the members of our church weak. We should never bring politics into the pulpit. You know, that's why I said at the last podcast, I didn't vote for Obama the first time. I didn't vote for him the second time. I didn't vote for Kamala, and I didn't vote for Trump, because that whole thing is a game. It's a game, and I don't like playing games.
So it's when you say it's a game, you're saying that this is just something that, you know, it's because you use the word puppetry. Both of you guys use the word puppetry, and I'm gonna share some scripture.
What I mean by a game is, for instance, I don't know if I'm just different, you know. But
you are different, Pastor Green.
Yes. but that charade of Trump almost getting his head blown off. To me, that is such a game. It was so fake. The whole thing was so fake, and I'm saying people actually believed that this guy almost got assassinated. To me, that's a game. It was fake. I'm not saying that things like that don't really happen, but that was fake. And the whole thing was set up. The whole thing was set up so that Trump would win by a landscape. And that's exactly what happened.
I personally don't think that's why he won in a landslide. But
it helped.
You sound quite cynical about this whole thing, and I can dig it. Pastor Q?
Well, my guide is Ephesians chapter 6, reading from probably 10 to 18. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places.
That's right.
So he's saying the darkness of this world, principalities and powers, spiritual wickedness. So at every level is ruled by the powers of darkness, you know. And, you know, sometimes you see like these folk, Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris, even Donald Trump himself, and you wonder what kind of religion do they follow. And the fact is that, these all of those folk, they're very religious people. Hillary Clinton is very religious,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not the religion you think it is, because the Bible says that they're under the control of dark agencies. For you to reach a certain level, you have to be either a 33rd degree Mason,
Mm-hmm.
or you will have to be a Jesuit. Okay. And so things are being manipulated by the forces of darkness. There are men who are behind the facade, who uh, who who actually write the script that they have to follow. And we are just fodder for the mill. you know and so that's why I say, don't let this thing destroy your family, don't let this thing destroy your church. Pastors should not get in the pulpit preaching politics.
Mm-hmm.
We have to preach Christ. When we preach Christ, when we call for the need for the Holy Spirit and examine the Bible, the people will have a relationship with Christ that will guide them in what they need to do. And they will have principles that would help them to make correct choices. Okay. I don't know. Maybe I might sound controversial in an Adventist context, but I don't know how much stock I'm going to put in the fact that if you vote for someone, then you're part of this sin. And I know that might be controversial to say, but then you can't vote for no one.
Right.
You can't you can't vote in your job. All of these places you're voting, and some of these people are wicked people, but you're voting them to be in control, and some of them have a lot of control over your life. And so, I mean, how far do you take that idea? Maybe that's something we can discuss.
Can I share my scripture?
Sure.
Okay.
And my scripture is coming from Isaiah, the book of Isaiah 31. And this is in relationship to some of our pulpits are being turned into political platforms where we're pushing for some political party or whatever. But notice what it says in Isaiah 31, beginning with verse 1. It says, "Woe to them that go down to Egypt." Now, you might say that's the Democratic Party. "For help, and stay on horses, and trust in chariots, because they are many, and in horsemen, because they are very strong. But they look not unto the Holy One of Israel, neither seek the Lord. Yet he also is wise, and will bring evil, and will not call back his words, but will arise against the house of the evildoers, and against the help of them that work iniquity. Now the Egyptians, BLM, are men, and not God, and their horses flesh, and not spirit. When the Lord shall stretch out his hand, both he and that helpeth shall fall, and he that is hoping shall fall down, and they all shall fall together. As birds flying, so will the Lord of hosts defend Jerusalem. Defending also, he will deliver it, and passing over, he will preserve it. And then it says, "Turn ye unto him from whom the children of Israel have deeply revolted." In other words, when you revolt against God and you put your faith in flesh, when you put your faith in horses, when you put your faith in political parties, you are not putting your faith in God, and you will fall. And I am very disappointed that you got pastors operating and turning their pulpits into some kind of a political campaign thing. And I'm telling you, we got to stop that.
Yeah, let me let me go ahead and just play the first clip, and I want you guys to react to this, because you just read the scripture here, and I'm looking at Jeremiah 17. There's a lot that we can look at. 1 Timothy chapter 4, 2 Timothy chapter 4, and we're going to get into that. But let me just go ahead and play this clip real quick and then get some thoughts around it.
Before Pastor Mario comes, we're going to have a song of meditation. But before we have the song of meditation, I want to set it up. I want to use this moment to set up the song of meditation and to set up Pastor Mario. Today, last week's Sabbath, those of you who were here and those of you who tuned in, listened to me present a message entitled, "A Vote is a Terrible Thing to Waste." I am mindful of the fact that while we're here in our Sabbath best and we are worshiping, if you were paying attention, if you cared about what happened this week, many of you are disappointed and shocked and angry and frustrated and hurting. I will admit to you that as your pastor, this is one of those days when I don't think that I am in a good place where I could preach. I'm going to be honest with you. I have been in an emotional and spiritual funk and depression since Tuesday night. I haven't watched any television. I haven't read anything in the news. Because my heart is sad and broken. I know that there are those of you sitting here, or maybe those of you hearing my voice, who are so super spiritual that you're thinking, as a pastor, I shouldn't think that way, and I shouldn't talk that way. But that's the way it is, and that's the way I am, and I'm being real with you.
That's the way it is. That's the way I am. And he's being real. Now you have, there's a great setup, right? Because you have the in the background, you've got the organ playing. He's talking very slow. A lot of these things I pick up on because it's an emotional drive, right? He's driving a point emotionally, and he has to get everybody behind him.
Well, he had his amen corner.
He has a lot of amen. As we go along, you hear a lot more amen corners because he gets more emotional. It just sounds to me that on the Sabbath, this is not a Wednesday night prayer meeting or, something happened, in the fellowship hall on a Sunday afternoon. This is on the Sabbath, on the pulpit, just before the hymn of meditation. Can you guys let me know, what do you think is going through the minds, Pastor Cuke, of the people at this point, of the congregation?
This is a difficult one for me. It hits close to home. This is, of course, from Northeastern Conference, and it seems as though
All three of us All three of us are from Northeastern Conference. Yes, it does. And we have a personal look. I know him too. Okay, I know you guys know him.
My whole thing is
wait. I want to get Pastor Cuke. I want to hear Pastor because Pastor Cuke. We were talking about this earlier. Go ahead, Pastor Cuke.
Yeah, I'll tell you the truth. I called the president, Dr. King, and I said, Dr. King, you might have to do a workshop because there's too many crazy stuff about Northeastern coming out on the internet, and the pastors need to be more careful about what they say. You can't be blatantly, show your bias on the internet. I mean, that's jeopardizing your 501c3, and the fact is that people looking on there are people there who support Trump, and now he's making it look as though the worst thing in the world that could ever happen. What did the Bible say? The Bible said, "Put your trust in princes," But it looked to me like he felt the whole world was going to pieces, and then he says several times. I listened to the whole thing, and he says that it is a revelation. Basically, I'm putting it in my words. It's a revelation of the true nature of America, meaning that America is misogynistic, homophobic, angry,
Racist,
hateful, racist.
xenophobic.
That's what it is. That by voting for Trump, this is the statement you're making. Okay, and the fact is that some good people voted for Trump because Kamala Harris, she lost. One of the reasons why she lost, or at least didn't show a better showing, it was because she's so woke. And if you go woke, you're going to go broke. Hello, somebody.
Or you get choked.
Have mercy. Because look at her. Some of the people in her cabinet look like some folks straight out of Mars.
Yeah.
Green hair, bald-headed women. It is terrible. Biden had people on there who were in charge, had very high positions in defense, who were going around stealing women's luggage from the airport and then putting their lingerie and underwear and dresses on. Crazy. And the fact is that she shot herself in the foot. A lot of honest, good, upright people voted for Trump. I have problems with Trump. I have problems with Kamala. I have problems with both of them. Like as Pastor Green said earlier, both of them are puppets anyway. There's a power behind them. But the fact is that honest, good, upright people looked at both sides and they had enough ammunition to go on either side or to not vote at all, which I decided not to do. This if I was going to, Sister White said you can vote on principles, and policies, and issues, okay? But I didn't see nothing here worth voting for.
Pastor Green, I'm gonna read a scripture here. It says, and this is Jeremiah 17:5. We should all know this, right? Cursed be the man, thus saith the Lord. Cursed be the man that trusts in man and maketh flesh his arm, and whose heart departs from the Lord. For he shall be like the heath in the desert, and shall not see when good comes, but shall inhabit the parched places in the wilderness, in a salt land and not inhabited. Cursed be the man that makes man his arm, that makes flesh his arm. There's a curse there, Pastor Green. And the mere fact that what he's and we're going to get into this because he says some things that, that made my jaw drop. It just seems to me that he is lacking faith in God. What do you see there? That's what I see. What do you think?
First of all, I feel like Pastor Q, because when we step into this, these are ministers that we, these are comrades in ministry, and you take a liking, to the various ministers. We don't all agree, but, this particular pastor, I never had any issues with, even though if I didn't know him, he was a type of person I wouldn't want to cross. But knowing that he is in Christ, I feel a little bit at ease, with him. But he really believed what he believes. You can't take that away from him. He honestly, genuinely believed. And I really believe that the reason why we have this kind of situation is because of poor leadership. As Pastor Cuke was saying, that he called and talked with the president. You have presidents. One of the presidents, he was put out of Northeastern, and eventually he became an elder at one of the small churches in my hometown around Anniston, Alabama. And we were studying the Sabbath school lesson, and the members of the church was trying to tell him that, that salvation is strictly by the accomplishments of Christ. And he was trying to throw works in there, and I had to side with the congregation against him because he was dead wrong. You have a lot of people, that are leading out as presidents, as union presidents. These folks lack, somewhere down the line, the relationship with Christ did not gel, and they're leading our church members, they're leading them to the slaughter. I think that there's a responsibility. One of the things that, I came to understand, when you are walking in the truth, as Christ is in the truth, sooner or later, you're going to come to understand things that we need to pass on down to the members of our church, pass on down to the leadership, those that are under us, because you're leading other people. And, just like Elder Baptiste, there were certain things that I came to understand. He left Northeastern. He went to the GC as a secretary. And when I began to find out certain things and who the real movers and shakers are behind all of this government stuff, and I was talking with Elder Baptiste, and he was acting like he didn't understand what I was talking about. And then finally I says, Elder Baptiste, square with me. I know you know what I'm talking about. And basically what he said was, Pastor Green, I'm telling you like this, leave that stuff alone, because you're going to get in trouble. And I was talking about organizations like the CFR and the Trilateral Committee and the Bilderbergers and all of that. See, we don't understand how this government thing operates. And that's why we get in our pulpit and we start taking these political stance, and you're dividing your congregation. You're tearing your congregation. We don't put our faith in flesh. We don't do that. Let people believe whatever they want to believe, but our job is to preach the unadulterated gospel as it is in Jesus Christ. The truth, the whole truth, the naked truth. Preach that. And eventually people will come to understand what you're supposed to understand and not be taking a stand and trying to get people united against another political party. That's not how it's going to end up. Christ doesn't operate like that. God does not operate like that. And that's just the bottom line. I mean, I'm really very sad for my comrades, that really don't understand.
Yeah, I and I applaud you for what you just said, Pastor Green. I believe there is a sad, ominous cloud, so to speak. And I think Pastor Cuke had mentioned this before. There's some kind of cloud that's just hanging over the Seventh-day Adventist Church right now, but it's a darkness, and I'm looking at leadership and I'm looking at the pastors and I'm saying to myself, you can have your feelings. I am all for that. The man sounded depressed. Yeah, I didn't watch television. I didn't eat. I didn't do this. I didn't do that, since Tuesday. And that's
he didn't preach.
You said what now?
He didn't even want to preach.
Well, he has somebody there. He has actually that Sabbath, he has a guest speaker waiting to preach, but he took the time. He took that time to get on the pulpit and share his feelings. Now, here's the thing. In that congregation, I'm sure that there are people who may have voted a different way. Mm-hmm. And to me, you are alienating them. You are putting them in the corner somewhere, okay? Because of your own feelings. Right. And there's a time for that. To me, it sounds like, I'm going to share with you some scripture here. 1 Timothy, it sounds like, if I must say, it sounds to me like 1 Timothy chapter 4, verses 1 and 2. Now the Spirit speaks expressly that in the latter times, some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. Verse 2 is really where I'm going. Speaking lies in hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron. Here it is. The pulpit to me is a place where God's word is shared. A pulpit to me, in my honest opinion, is a place where God is, the Holy Spirit is there for the to apply to the speaker, whether it be an elder or a pastor, evangelist, to apply, the given messages, the bread from heaven in the moment. So that while he is speaking to the members, they are hearing the voice of God, mind you, through the speaker at that moment. And you take that time to share your political grievances or your political feelings and your hurts and your pain based upon the fact that it's over and the opponent lost by an astounding or insurmountable margin. Mm-hmm. Okay? To me, that's not the time or the place for that. But that's just me. I'm going to share with you another clip here. I want to share with you guys another clip here, and we're going to continue to react to this as we go along.
Commentary and statements that was being made. We have a WhatsApp chat among us as pastors of the conference, and there are all kinds of commentary and all kinds of statements and all kinds of interpretation and rationalizations and spiritualizations that people have been are making. But you need to understand, my brothers and sisters, that what happened on Tuesday night has serious implications for those of us who are people of color, and especially those of us who are undocumented immigrants. The brother has told you what he was going to do. And it seems as if it is clear that America has decided that he has a blank check to relate to people of color and immigrants and people he considers less than any way he wants. And nobody is going to stop him. Not the courts. A few weeks ago, the sitting president made an executive order that he was going to provide clemency or amnesty for people who are undocumented but who are married to citizens of the United States. If you were married to a citizen of the United States and you've been married for, I think it's at least 10 years, he was going to make it possible for you to stay here without fear or anxiety until your papers are processed. We are not in January yet, and the courts have decided that they are going to roll that back. So it has begun. I have a problem with those of us who, like George Jefferson, has come to this country and somehow you have convinced yourself that you've pulled yourself up by your bootstraps and you are enjoying a piece of the pie and you are showing no concern for your brothers and sisters who are struggling. Make no mistake about it, sooner or later, all of us are going to be impacted. I don't care how educated you are, or how many properties you own, or what jobs you have. You're going to be impacted.
All right. I want to get you guys' thoughts on that because, again, he's going deeper and deeper into this chasm, into this divide. So, Pastor Cuke.
Well, let me first say that, this pastor is a great man. He's a very good pastor. I appreciate him. When my mother passed away, he was one of the pastors who really stood by my side. He was instrumental in bringing comfort to my family and so on. So I just want to put it out there that this is a wonderful man. And I just believe he made a mistake. It was a mistake. Some of the sentiments he presented were accurate because Trump is going to be hard on immigrants, and especially he's put Stephen Miller, a devil himself, to deal with that issue. Stephen Miller would, if it's going to gain him political clout, he'd send his mother to Cuba, That's a scary.
Stephen Miller is the deputy chief of staff.
Yeah.
But you're talking about John. You're talking about John Barr or Horror, the border czar.
Remember, Stephen Miller is in charge, or at least has been given a degree of authority to write policy.
Oh, the policy guy. Yeah. Yes.
Right. He's write the policy for this situation, and I mean, these are things that will guide how these folk are dealt with. And Stephen Miller has no mercy, But the point, the thing is this, that, the fact is that, this is something for a private, if you sit in private, and then people can talk back and say, well, Pastor, I hear what you're saying, but maybe, we should look at it from this way,
Right.
This isn't a thing for a give and take, but just for the people to be sitting there. As a matter of fact, in the first clip you had, who was the lady, the moderator on the...
Oh, you mean Joy Reid?
Joy Reid.
MSNBC. We're coming back to that.
Yes, and the thing is that I believe she is doing the work of the forces of darkness, which is the work of dividing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? To tell people don't even talk to your family because they voted for someone, that's crazy. Don't talk to your family. So now you're going to carry this thing deeper and separating families. But really, what in essence is being done here is dividing the church. Because I used to preach hard against Trump. I'm going to tell the truth. Shame the devil. And someone came to me and I'm talking to her about this and that. She said, well, I voted Trump. I'm like, what? I was blown away. I said, wow, because unfortunately, in many of our churches, we take it for granted everyone is Democrat. I praise God that I've been set free from the bondage to the political ideology, you know,
Mhm.
and really, you know, and I realize, you know, put not your trust in princes, you know,
Right.
and you know, the thing is, the Bible said that the arm of flesh, it didn't say might fail you, it will fail you,
That's right.
and but really, this pastor, my good friend, a wonderful man, is not setting the example of someone who's trusted in the spirit. But for him to be so cast down, you know, what example is he giving to the people about where they should put their trust? And is this something that would bring the church together? The church is fragmented right now.
The church
We're
is so divided.
very divided. We're fragmented over the vaccine, we're over COVID, over LGBTQ. You know, we are fragmented over you know, women in ministry, and I could go on
Critical
and on and
race
on.
theory.
What the church needs a voice of unity, and I
Yeah.
feel that this would have been a good time to bring the church together and say whether you chose Democrat or Republican, we are brothers and sisters, and we stand together as one.
Yeah, that's my take on it. That's where I am kind of driving this to, because we as this body of the church, we should not be so engrossed in it where we don't know how to cope, Pastor Green.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? We are at a point where we just don't know how to cope. And this pastor, he is a good guy. I mean, I've heard him preach, seen him at different churches. I know that he's, you know, look, he's overwhelmed with what happened. But the time and the place matters. And I just thought he's out there sharing his grievances instead of bringing the church together at this point. What do you say?
I I think that you know it's just that people can't see they can't see the bigger picture. You know, my whole take on this whole thing is probably different from everybody else, because when I think about, you know, Trump administration and everything that Trump is saying, Trump is using fear tactics, using fear tactics to get people to polarize against one another. But at the same time, Kamala is using fear tactics too. She's got folks scared that, you know, the LGBT alphabet community is going to come and take over, and they're going to join up with the transgenders, and next thing you know, how is this going to impact on our society? How is it going to impact on our kids? And so you got fear mongering going on both sides, and because of fear, we're turning against each other, not only in the church but also in society as well. It is very, very divisive. You know, so I just feel that we need to be able to look at this thing and see. That's why I keep on saying the game. The whole thing is a game. The whole thing is, you know, the Hegelian dialectic. You know, that's what it is. You know, you create opposites, and out of chaos, you bring order. And they are using fear. They got us tearing up the churches, tearing up society, tearing up the home. All of this is bringing about division on every level of our government, you know, our church, destroying families. You know, so I don't see Trump in the same light as my as many of my black brothers and sisters. I don't see him in that light, and I don't see Kamala. I don't have really in my heart. I have nothing against Trump, and I have nothing against Kamala, because to me, like I said, they are following through the role that was given them. And really deep down in my heart, I look at this whole thing as being a game behind the scenes. They know how this thing is going to play out. Kamala knew from the very beginning that her role was going to be a losing role. You don't do the things that you do and expect to win. She made a lot of dumb, stupid moves, if I can use that. And I hate to use those expressions, but if I was running for president, I would not do some of the things that Kamala did. And, you start talking about, all of these degrading, demoralizing things. Nobody is going to vote for you.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be folks going to vote for you, but the average thinking, decent-minded person, even you got corrupt people that know that the course that this woman is leading us is going to be leading us to destruction. So, I don't know.
Can I address that for a minute?
Q.
And I agree with Pastor Green. And then the thing is that we have seen it before. We have seen the results of going woke, so to speak. Okay, because the fact is that Budweiser, they tried it and lost billions of dollars. I didn't say millions, billions. Then Target tried the same foolishness, and they started losing money by the millions. Okay, even to the point where they had to close stores. Because don't matter how they try to make it look acceptable, the homosexual, the alphabet community, it's really under satanic influence. It's a satanic lifestyle, and it's not natural. It's of the devil himself. Part of the reasons why is that that you see these communities being pushed is because the powers that be want to promote population control, and these are methodologies of controlling the population. Abortion has done more to decimate the black community than just about any single thing. We have become definitely a minority. The Spanish have really outpaced us. You know what I'm saying? Because abortion has been such. Now here you are. We are 10% of the population, roughly. And yet 80% in some cases of the abortion clinics or the family planning setups are in black communities. That don't even make sense. 80%, at one point in time. I don't know if it's still as bad as it used to be. And so you see, both of these folk, the Bible said we wrestle not against flesh and blood. If you keep that in mind, we would recognize that what we need to look for at this time is to keep our eyes on Jesus, keep our eyes on spiritual things. These that indicate on both sides we see trouble. Kamala is pushing these hideous doctrine. Trump is pushing the trickle down materialism. The trickle down theory, you get the people richer, the rich, and it's been tried before in history, and it doesn't work. Because the more money you give a man, the more money he wants. He's going to trickle down, if anything, as just enough to keep the poor folk at the bottom scrunging. So trickle down doesn't work. And so to be focused on the rich and even just focused on materialism alone is one of the best ways to break a country. I don't care how good your policies are. If you focus on materialism, and that is what we see now has been the keynote in all the people's thinking. Oh, we want to prosper. We want to have America first and all this kind of stuff, which is the surest way to cause the country to crumble. And then we look and we see what's going on at the border. And it's not right. You open up your front door and let anyone come in, you're looking to destroy your house. But still, it's not. Still, people must be treated as human beings, and a humane policy. It's not wild dogs out there; it's people. A humane policy must be put in place in order to fix this problem, and it can be fixed. And praise God, this administration wants to focus on it, but they have to focus on the problem in the right way. The bottom line to what I'm saying is that it's not about Trump and it's not about Kamala. We have to realize that Satan is in charge of the powers of the air. When we lose sight of that fact, if you don't know who your enemy is, you're doomed to be defeated. When these folk go, and I'm talking about all of them, go to the Bohemian Grove, and they're standing before that owl, which represent the illuminated one, Lucifer himself. I hope I'm not getting too deep for this podcast.
No, you're good. Keep going.
The fact is that the policies that are being presented show that that there's a dark force behind it, and the fact is that, and unfortunately, Kamala carries a whole lot of it in this area, because abortion now is really a sacrifice to Molech, modern day Molech.
Mm-hmm.
These children that are being killed, hundreds of thousands, millions, 60 to 70 million over the last few decades. It's horrible. And so we wrestle not against flesh and blood. These are dark forces that are controlling principalities and powers. If you keep that in mind, you will seek the Lord in order to stand in the right position to these things.
Pastor Green, Kamala's husband is Jewish. Not too sure if he's a practicing Jew, but he is Jewish. Do you think Kamala would have been more sympathetic to Sabbath keepers because of her husband?
I don't think so. And that's because, of an experience I had, when I was trying to get a particular person off on the Sabbath, and the manager says, well, why don't you talk to the Jew, that works in the pharmacy, and ask why he works on the Sabbath. And I did. I went and talked. I said, do you believe in the 10 Commandments? He said, yes. I said, do you believe the 4th commandment? You believe in the Sabbath? He says, yes. I said, well, how come you work on the Sabbath? And he said, well, because you got to eat. And so a lot of some Jews, not all of them, but I really think that it's more about the money. It's more about the money than anything else. Even when it comes to, what happened to Asheville, North Carolina, it's my understanding that her husband has a lot of money invested in the resources in Asheville, North Carolina. I'm talking about the lithium and the quartz and all of that. He has tremendous investments in that area. And there's a lot that can be said about that, but I just feel that, where did this guy come from? This guy is filthy, filthy, filthy rich. Has a lot of control. And all of a sudden, Kamala comes, as far as I'm concerned, up from nothing. And then all of a sudden she's this powerful, great person. And not to really dog her or put her down, but it's just so much. I don't believe that this guy being Jewish, is it really means anything. Like I said, I look at Kamala as being a player, just like Trump is a player. So I don't really. I think that behind the scenes, whoever is controlling in that arena, whatever that shadow government is made up of, those are the ones that are making all of this soap opera. They're creating a soap opera for us, and we're looking in the wrong places.
Okay. So with that being said, even though he is a Jew, you don't see it.
Well,
I don't see it.
I don't, it's just like the organization that we start out trying to understand by the Illuminati. A lot of times people, when they think of the Illuminati, they put their eyes on the Jewish people. The Illuminati is not the movers and shakers behind that organization. It's the Roman Catholic Church. Rome is behind the Illuminati. Don't focus on the Jews. They don't have any real power. The power comes from Rome.
And I would like to say also, you, Larry, you asked about the Sabbath, and the fact is, both sides were pushing a false Sabbath because which is the Sunday Sabbath, but Kamala was pushing it from a climate change perspective to save the environment, to save Mother Earth. We should have one day of rest for the planet. Okay, and they even talked about family and all this stuff.
And Trump is pushing it from a religious
Perspective. So really,
Correct.
either side would have been amenable to support the Sabbath and so on, because each of them pushed the false Sabbath. Because as Pastor Green said, they're all marching to the beat of the papacy's drum.
Same beat, same drum. Correct.
Come on.
Same beat, same drum. So the reason why I asked that question is because, there are some who believe that, Kamala Harris would have been quite the good person because of her husband.
But communism doesn't work. And she's a Marxist. How are you going to be pushing Marxism and think that in the final end, that is going to be in the best interest of the American people? Trump is the opposite of that. He's pushing fascism. How in the world do you think, either way you go, it talks about either your choice is between, a fascist. I'm almost scared because of Candace Owen, and she mentioned about Adolf Hitler. It's either your choice between Adolf Hitler or Stalin. Both of them are terrorists, and tyranny comes either way you go. It's about control. And this is what they're letting us know. No matter which way you go, you are going to come under some kind of control, whether it's through Marxism or whether it's through fascism.
Okay. Pastor James. Welcome, brother.
Yeah, I'm listening. It's a serious discussion here.
Yeah, it's a very serious discussion. The question on the table is, Kamala's husband is a Jew. Would he have been more amicable or more, would she have been, if she had been the president, would she have been more sympathetic to Seventh-day Adventists who keep the Sabbath?
Oh, wow. That's a huge question. Would she have been more sympathetic to Seventh-day Adventists who keep the Sabbath in the case of a national Sunday law? Is that what you're saying?
Well, just overall, she's the president today. And of course, as time goes within her 4 years, she looks at it and says, you know what, I'm going to make sure that these people, are kind of like, because my husband worships on the Sabbath. He's a Jew. So because of this, then that, right? Those who worship on the Sabbath.
Oh, that's the point.
Would be more of like
that's a possibility. But it also seems to me she's very politically driven. It doesn't seem like she stands on any serious principles. Like, for example, she might support the gays, but at the same time, she's also for censorship. So on one side, she seems to be sympathetic to minority groups, but she's also pushing laws that are, in principle, she pushes laws that violates other people's liberty that she does not agree with. So you don't really get a clear, it's never going to be a yes or no answer, really, because you just don't know what she would do. It all depends on how the pendulum of prophecy is headed, or depending on how she feels politically as well. Because, for example, she never cared about Black people. She even said she would never make a law. She would never do a law for just Black people, right? But she did stuff for Asian people and other communities. And then when it was time to run for office, she all of a sudden became Black. right? Whatever, we don't really care about your skin color. I kind of wish you weren't selling that. You would just sell your policies. People will buy into that better. But like for me, she flips flaps depending on where it fits best politically. And I think that's more inconsistent to me. I would rather not. Like with Trump, you know what you're going to get. It's not the best, but at least you know he's an open book. But with Kamala Harris, it's kind of like you don't know what you're going to get. It depends.
See, my personal opinion about Pastor James, about Trump, is that once Trump gets in the office, you're going to see some flip-flopping from him, because the agenda that's being carried out by the shadow government, it's going to be carried out. It's going to be carried out, and he is going to do some flip-flopping. But the thing is, you got all the conservative people, they put him in office, and now you got to live with what you got. But some of the things that you're fighting against, not wanting Kamala to be in, or Kamala, is going to be the same thing that is going to be carried out by Trump once he gets in power. The same thing. I mean, I
wouldn't say same. I will say there's similar. There's going to be some flip-floppings as well. But one thing I've also noticed when it comes to Trump, and this is not because I'm like a full Trump supporter, like he tends to go against the agenda of the left, and the elites can't stand him. Like for example, the World Health Organization hates Trump, and who else? The UN can't stand him.
The EPA.
Actually, when he went to the UN, he challenged, the EPA. He like a lot of really systems that has troubled even the pharmaceutical companies, for example, they can't stand him. So to me, it's one of those things like they say, right? The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So there is an element of that in Trump that I actually look at and say, it is highly possible, like Brother Larry was saying earlier, Trump might be a temporary solution to an open sore. I don't necessarily think he is the solution. There's no way. We know that we cannot put our trust in men. Our trust has to be in God. But I'm also very careful condemning Trump or putting him in the same package as Kamala Harris, because like the last 4 years of Kamala Harris administration and also Biden, it was atrocious. If you were to compare that 2016, 2020, and then 2020 versus 2024, is not the same thing at all. It's like you went far left, radical left, and then Trump was definitely in the far right camp, but there was still some level of sanity in the land. There was still some things that were decent. There were still some values that were respected. But it's like when the Kamala Harris came, the borders got wide open, the lesbians and the gays become all over the place. It's like the schools became radicals and the gay books became to fly. I went to the library in my local area. I've been here for years. The gay books are in our libraries. And I went there, and you can go to the section where it is there, and you will see the entire thing. It's kinkiness. It's there for the children to read. Like, this was not there before. Even my wife picked up on it. She's like, this is wild. I don't know how they're supporting this. Now, the drag queens are reading in our local libraries. That was not a thing. But that happened under Kamala Harris and also Joe Biden. Like, under Trump, these things were somewhat under control. I wouldn't say they were. It wasn't as wild. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing, the compromise was happening. It was creeping. But under Kamala Harris, it was just running wild. That's kind of what I saw based on my observation.
I'm going to say this. I put the question, I posed that question because it's going to get deeper as we go along for the next few moments here. But going back to now the pastor that is using the platform of the pulpit to share his political grievances, we will see that, of course, it's about race. Of course, it's about social issues, right? This is what it's about. This is what it's about. And I think on our last podcast earlier today, Pastor James, what I said is this: the world is watching Trump. You think no one is watching this? Everyone is watching what he's going to do. He made some promises in his campaign. The entire world is what they said has given a MAGA it's more of like, hey, you have this mandate, and it's called a MAGA mandate, and you better do things right? You better come up with all these promises. You better make them. So everyone's watching Trump. But what I said earlier today is, throw the rock on this side, and everybody go ahead and looks to the left. Everybody's going to look to the left, while on the right, something is brewing. Okay. In September of 2024, the UN and the WHO worked together on a midnight hour on a Sunday morning to pass a memorandum that if anything happens in America regarding a national emergency, the UN will take over America. And in case of any kind of health or pandemic, the WHO will lead the efforts.
And you get it.
This is very serious because it's not going to be about Trump anymore. If something happens in America where the UN will take over, it has absolutely nothing to do with Trump. And oh, by the way, if the UN takes over, the leader of the UN, who is a staunch Catholic, I believe will hand the reins over to Rome. And laws can and will be passed from a United Nations perspective, because these are global laws now. So when you look at it from that perspective, all of a sudden, the president becomes very small. He was very small during COVID. When he passed a national emergency, he became very small. You started to realize it wasn't really him running anything. WHO stepped in, the UN stepped in, and our congressmen, legislatures, and all those other folks, they started to push for certain mandates. And all of a sudden, you started to realize, wait a minute, where's the president in all of this?
Well, the United Nations is really the American branch of the Illuminati. The building was built by the Rockefeller family, the United Nations. It was built by the Rockefeller family. The land that it sits on was supplied by the Rockefeller family. So, I mean, it only makes sense. It's the Illuminati branch. It's the American branch of the Illuminati.
Right. All I'm saying is this. There is a lot more than just Donald Trump, than just a president. There is a lot more. And we are laser focused on one person. When I'm telling you, Pastor Green, you just mentioned Illuminati. There is Bilderberg. There's CFR. There's all these other groups that are major think tanks to Rome. To Rome. And when you hear the Pope speak like this.
Not only that, but also FEMA.
FEMA, exactly.
FEMA is patterned after a program that was set up by Adolf Hitler.
And it's also, well, no, that pattern that was set up by Adolf Hitler was also set up by Rome. That was during Pope Pius. That was set up by Rome, because remember, Rome always sets up programs for the poor.
Yeah.
Always. So again, we have to open our eyes a little bit broader, okay? The United Nations does sit in America. It does. But when you hear the Pope saying, I want to be the chaplain of the United Nations, that's not hard. When the United Nations, the secretary of the UN is a Catholic, that's not hard. When the Pope says, I want to be the president of the world, that's not hard. When Joe Biden is a staunch Catholic, it's not hard. Because he's being the president by proxy. Okay? Oh, and by the way, when they go ahead and put judges, because, right now, Donald Trump is the president. You have two judges that are looking to retire. Okay? What's the black one's name again?
Clarence Thomas.
There you go. Number one, getting ready to retire. Judge Sotomayor, the Latino one, getting ready to retire. Of course, Trump is going to put two more, and it may just be Catholics.
Absolutely.
So again, we have to look at it from all angles. Everyone is looking at 2025 Trump. Larry's looking at, well, what's the UN doing? What's WHO doing? What are these guys, how all of these guys play in? Because eventually what you're going to see is this. You're going to see, like I said, something major happen in America during Trump's administration. It was 2020. It was COVID. It will be something else going during that administration. Once that happens, let's see what happened in 2024 of September. Let's see if the UN takes over. Then all of a sudden, it's a different ball game. That's just me. But I'm looking at those type of things. Let's get back to this video. Clip number 3. I want you to hear now what the pastor is saying based upon these areas that we touched on. Let's listen to this.
The other thing I want to say about this is, this, for me, has served as a wake-up call. Let's not kid ourselves. America has spoken. And by their votes, people have said they would rather have somebody who is a misogynist, a convicted felon, a racist in the White House over someone who would enact policies that would make the lives of most people better. You know, I see online people are talking about, well, you know, she deserved what she got, championing gay rights and abortion. Don't get it twisted, folks. It is not about gay rights and abortion. It's about your freedoms that sooner or later are going to be curtailed by the policies of this administration. Now, I'm not saying this to scare you. And by the way, those of you who are thinking, why is the pastor taking up Pastor Maria's time? Is because Pastor Maria and I have an agreement that I'm going to get what's off my chest before he comes. This has served also as a wake-up call for me personally, and I hope for you also, that we need to get back to understanding what is God really saying. And I'm not talking about us spiritualizing things away. I'm not talking about us rationalizing things away. I'm not talking about you sitting there talking about God puts up kings and takes down kings. God is speaking to this, and one of the things he's telling us is that don't be fooled. This is who America is. That's one. The second thing he's saying to us like he said to the pioneers in 1844 when they suffered the great disappointment, you need to go back to the Word, get back to the Word, and see what this is saying. We've talked about Jesus is coming soon. We talked about all these things that are going to be put in place. You know, I think that the devil has a lot of us as Adventists deceived. We're sitting here, we're looking, you know, when is the Son of the Lord coming? When is that coming? While at the meantime, he's undermining and taking away freedoms and paving the paths. Where all these things will just happen all of a sudden. Who would think in your wildest dreams that you'd ever get to the place in this country where something like this would happen?
All right. I wanted you guys to share your thoughts. Pastor James, I know you had shared this before. Let me get your thoughts.
Yeah, I did do a reaction video to this. And one of the counsels that I give, I think, first of all, this doesn't belong on the pulpit. Like, we are in this podcast and we have this discussion, and I will tell you my honest opinion. I will never say this in front of my church. Never. They will never hear it from me. Even in front of my family, I'm very careful speaking like that. But the issue that I had with the stuff he was saying, somebody said in a comment, "What about the freedom of the babies?" And I thought about that. So I started laughing. I said, "That's actually a good point." You know, the issue is that the way the minister is looking at prophecy, and not an attack on the minister. Let's just talk about his ideology. He's not looking at things correctly here because it's too much political. It's too politically invested in the Democratic Party, so he's not able to see things fully. My counsel was this: 1 Samuel chapter 16 is the verse that I refer to. 16:7. The Lord says, "Do not look upon his appearance and the height of his stature, because I have rejected him," speaking about Saul. "For men see not as the Lord seeth," because we look on outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. And the point is, there is a great danger in the way we view political leaders, because we oftentimes think, if the media say this about so and so, therefore we judge them. Oh, Kamala Harris is this, therefore we judge. Trump is this, therefore we judge. But what we're supposed to be judging are the policies. And in the sermon, he speaks about how the policies don't matter. Actually, the policies do matter. The policies is what impacts you and I. The policies is what will eventually bring us to a place there will be persecution. Those policies are what really is crucial. Now, character does matter, don't get me wrong. But a man's character in political office has very little influence to do with me. Let me explain to you what I mean. If you live in the same home with Trump or with Harris, then their character impacts you because you live with them. But if they're in office, their character doesn't have much to do with you if that is not written in their policies. So what you have to look at, you can have a pretty smile girl or this grumpy looking guy. What is in the law? What is written in policies, and what impact will this have in my life and also in the life of the church? That's what we have to look at. So that's why I would say be very careful how you judge Trump. Since he's president now, you may not understand everything. There might be a reason why God have him there. Like, there is a purpose behind this election. This man should have been gone. Just look at the trajectory. Just step back and look at how this happened. This businessman from New York has no really political position and understanding, no major background in the study of politics. This guy came out of nowhere. And the moment he chose to become a president, all of a sudden the world turned against him. He became the worst racist. When you look at the past, this man was in relationship with all kind of black people, from what I've heard. He used to hang out with G Unit. He used to be in their studio. He was giving loans to black musicians to the point where they didn't have to pay the money back. So all of a sudden, he got smeared. And I'm still looking at this. I'm like, how he just become racist overnight? Okay, let's just leave that aside. But the guy was supposed to be gone. He lost the election in 2020. And then the media never stopped talking about him. So he came back. 2 assassination attempts. And then he turned out and won. House, Senate. Like, you can't look at this stuff and say, yo, there's something spiritual going on here. This is not normal. Like, we've never seen anything like this.
Could it be a
like,
bad
you have
spirit?
to look at this on face value and say, this is definitely, there's something behind this that God is doing. I'm not saying I have all the understanding, but I'm trying to understand it. There is more than what we are seeing. Because the fact Trump won again, there's something spiritual behind this, and we need to look at it from the perspective of God. That's
Pastor
all I'm
James, I mean, Pastor Q.
Well, be careful about, I lived in New York and did a lot of negative realities about Trump when it comes to race, So unfortunately, especially if you want to check me out, go and see the history of Starrett City and some of the forms that were written up so that he keep black people out of the buildings, and he was the one that was enforcing it. So, and it's not to besmirch anyone's character. What I'm saying here is that, there are powers that are writing the script. Don't get too caught up in, and especially when you see something as crazy as this roller coaster ride that Trump has been on, there's got to be some superpowers behind him in order to and in order to for him to come to this point. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. And therefore, we see these powers behind. And you're right, there is a spiritual reality, there's a spiritual forces. But, God is in charge. And God and the Bible tells us that, God will take all things work together for good to those
Correct.
that love the. I believe that Trump has, just by the mere fact that Trump doesn't push this hideous LGBT philosophy like Kamala. And Kamala, every time she got up, she talked about abortion. She was trying her best to shoot herself in the foot. And one of the problems I have with my good brother's presentation, the pastor who spoke, is that he downplayed these things. He said, "Oh, don't get so caught up in these things, the abortion rights, and these are not basically. If you go on and you watch the rest of the thing, you see he's going to say these are not major issues. These are major issues. These are primary issues that has that has decimated our community. And so by Kamala pushing these things, she showed her true colors. And we can go into her background and as an Indian, her relationship with the god Kali, the god of destruction, and so on. And you can go into a whole lot of deep stuff. So, her path is frightening. Both of them, their path is frightening. And I think that there's a dark force that's writing these scripts. And the Bible says it. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. And so I go back to what I originally said, and that is that we have to look to God for his guidance and recognize that he's in control. And then we have to keep the pulpit pure. We can't be preaching all kinds of political stuff on the pulpit and almost weeping because our party didn't win. That's not of God, and it definitely goes against policies of the conference, policies of the government. That goes against policy, and as pastors, we have to set an example before the people that recognizes that God is in control. If the people don't have that, they're going to be in despair because now your political party has lost. You had all your trust in that party, and now your hope is going down the drain. And then the other side is rejoicing, and so now that side is rejoicing. You're weeping, and now there's a divide that now comes about because of that. The church is divided, families are divided, just like the first lady in the Joy
Reid.
Joy Reid was promoting separation of families. Have mercy. And so we have to be very careful, and we have to see behind this Ephesians chapter 6. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, and it should drive us to the cross and to seek the Lord. The churches need to be united behind the reality that the Bible needs to come first and our relationship with Christ. And we can't afford to be getting depressed just because our political party didn't win.
Yeah. Pastor Green, I know you're biting at the chomps here. What you patiently biting at the chomps.
Yeah, during the time of the civil rights movement, it came out that Martin Luther King, one of the reasons why he was assassinated was because he came to realize some of the powers that were behind the civil rights movement, like the Communist Party and all of that. And he began to speak against it. And eventually that led to his assassination. So a lot of things be going on, even when it comes to George Wallace, when he was running, for office. And eventually he was running for the presidency. And when I was young, and I would come to visit my relatives in Alabama, I would be talking about their governor like a dog. I would be dogging George Wallace as being a racist because of the media painted him. But there were some things that was going on even within the civil rights movement that caused the folks in the South to be somewhat against some of the changes that were taking place. Now, what I'm saying is that even though I was dogging their governor, my relatives, they told me, you got it all wrong. You know, they were telling me that George Wallace is the best governor that they ever had, because behind the scenes, they were getting more through Governor Wallace than some of the previous governors of Alabama. So I'm using that as a springboard for Trump. Trump is doing a lot of things. He's saying a lot of things. Trump is a politician. He feeds into the fears of the extreme right in order to gain their support. But behind the scenes, as you were saying, Trump did a lot of things for black people, you know, coming up the ranks. But now he's operating in a way that would put him in a position of power among, people, more or less, going against what Kamala Harris was pushing. Because basically, Kamala Harris, she was talking about, we got to protect the freedoms of the American people. But at the same time, you are taking the woke position and you are making everything that should be absolute relative. You're making it relative. You're setting things up so that there is no absolutes. Everything is relative. And I think that in itself created quite an opposition, from people, sensible thinking people. You got children now acting like they could be an animal if they want to be a llama, if they want to be a cat or a dog. All of this stupid stuff, that makes absolutely no sense. You would have the brain of a suckerfish to believe into some of the things that was being pushed by the woke crowd that was being the crowd that was supporting Kamala Harris. So I just look at the whole thing as being a setup. The whole thing is a setup and pushing us and driving us toward the extreme right. And now that you got this man in office, you're going to begin to see some real changes that's going to start taking place simply because you're afraid of one party. Now you're gravitating toward another party, because even with the pastor, he was saying that even on the other end, we're talking about the fear of Trump getting in office and dogging Trump. Well, on the other end, you got the other folks dogging Kamala Harris. And for the same reason, it's fear. We're being played. We're being hoodwinked.
Quick, may I say something quickly? I appreciate those both remarks and how balanced that was. Larry, in our discussion earlier, and you just mentioned some of it, it's like we have to look bigger. We're centering a lot of Bible prophecy around an individual. It's supposed to be about the events and the signs of the times.
There you go.
And one person can play a role, but it's bigger than one person. Like you've said, you have to look at all the different factors. It's a diamond with many sides. And the thing is, and I think sometimes there is a spirit that is almost unrealistic when it comes to Trump. A lot of what I see from a lot of people is like people don't want to be honest. And I'm not going to say this because I just want to be honest with you. Like, Trump is going to go down, and that's an honest truth, as one of the greatest presidents ever lived. I'm telling you. It's only going to make sense in the pages of history. It's oftentimes one thing you have to also look at when you look at history, right? When Abraham Lincoln was doing what he was doing, most people thought he was the worst thing. But today, when we read it in our books, we say, wow, what a man. And I'm just telling you, when you are living in history, you oftentimes cannot see things clearly. But as time passed, and then you look back and you say, you know what, man, we were wrong. And all I'm simply saying is I'm able to see what Trump was like 2016 to 2020. I've been a YouTuber for over 15 years now. Under Trump's presidency, I never knew what censorship was. I never got a strike on YouTube. I never got debunked. I never got hit because I got hit for sexual harassment because I called a group of, I did a reaction video calling a group of LGBT to repentance. I got strike on YouTube for that. I got strike over COVID. I lost a channel. Eventually, it was restored. I had to open 2 other channels to keep putting out my content. When I touched the vaccine, I got strike. All this happened during Biden and Kamala Harris administration, and also X was so controlled by the Democratic Party. It was Twitter. It was so bad. I don't think people actually understand. If you're not a content creator, you may not know stuff like this, because if you just go to church, you just live your life. But when you're a content creator, you know the difference between those two parties. You begin to actually feel it, because it comes in your email. It comes straight to you. Like, it looks at you in the face. And there's some things that I saw during that party that I will say, yeah, that party is definitely not doing the will of God. Now, the other side is, and I do agree with both ministers, it is possible that the devil is setting us up. But I also have to ask the question, do we also believe ultimately that God is in charge? Like, if God is really in charge, could it be possible that God is prepping us for these end times, and Trump is in a position for such a time as this, so that he can bring us to where we need to be so that we can head home? There are prophecies that must take place. So if God has to allow Trump to win so that the certain prophetic events can take place, great changes are soon to take place in our world, and the final movement will be rapid ones. Well, maybe that's the reason why the Lord allowing it to happen. And if that is also happening, it's ultimately still within the framework of God's will, even though we may not agree with the way it is. Like, if we really believe Jesus is coming again, those prophecies must come to pass. And there are certain things that have to happen that we may not always agree with, but it still fall in line with God's will to bring us where we need to be. And I think that's why we have to look at things much abroad, much bigger than just a single individual. I think we're going to miss the mark. But I'm telling you, mark my words. If we get to live another 6 years from now, a lot of people are going to look back in Trump's presidency. They're going to say, you know what? We totally misread and mischaracterized this man. And I'm so honest about that.
You know, you brought about history with Abraham Lincoln. Last week, we talked about Abraham Lincoln simply because Sister White and the pioneers had an issue with voting. It was a big problem. Voting was the issue. And the Seventh-day Adventist Church, that young church, this is before they were even formalized as a church, right? This is back in 1856. 1856, they weren't formalized as a church until 1863. So, so they stood firm on not voting because they believe, and as we believe, we don't need to be a part of that. Why? Because we know the second advent of Jesus Christ is on its way, right? Why get involved in things of this world when Christ is coming soon? It wasn't until 1860, 4 years later, when it came down to slavery, and the fight for it being abolished, because Sister White and the pioneers were abolitionists. And they believed in, this slavery thing is not conducive to spreading the gospel. We have to get to the South. We have to get to the African Americans. We have to get to those who are underserved and they cannot get this message.
We have to get to South Pittsburgh.
We got to get South Pittsburgh. Like that. The thing is, we didn't understand, and they didn't understand it either, because Sister White looked at this person and said, we need to vote on temperance. If the candidate is temperate, then we can vote on temperance. If the candidate is not, they're intemperate, we cannot vote for that. I shared with that last week. I haven't shared the document that was written based upon this. And, when I looked at it and I said, you know what, Lord, there's so much interwoven, things that we just don't understand. But yet we're making judgment. We're passing judgment just easy based upon what we see. So God looks at the inward and we look at the outward and we pass judgment.
You know, I just want to say something before I forget, and that's about censorship that Pastor James brought up. I don't see censorship going away simply because Trump is in office. I see censorship is going to be justified by events that are going to take place, and the censorship has been set up. But now it's going to be justified through various events. When I think about, even when it comes to the LGBT community, I mean, you got one end, the extreme right is speaking out against it, but then when they won the campaign, what did they have as their song, their closing song? YMCA. I mean, it just seems like, this is why I'm saying that it just doesn't add up. But I don't see censorship going away. I think it's going to be justified by events just like terrorists, by blowing up the Twin Towers. All of a sudden now we got to bring in anti-terrorist legislation. So things is going to be created so that censorship will be mandated and mandatory because something is out of control. So we have to have censorship.
I will also agree with you. Censorship has happened under both parties. It has been ever since with Mark Zuckerberg. It started a long time ago. But this is the difference that I noticed. The censorship that was happening, at least to me in my YouTube channels and in my podcast, it was happening in the last 4 years. I've never experienced anything like that. I was getting censored over word. Like, sometime doing an entire live stream, I got shut down. I'm not sure if this happened to you, Brother Larry. It happened to me. Doing an entire live stream.
Not once, not twice, but more than 3 times.
I've never seen anything like that. So the difference that I do see right now, for example, Elon Musk bought X. If you want to know how the Democratic Party really feel about free speech, look how they're treating Elon Musk. Like, they trying to shut X down. Like, the George Soros companies are coming in there. There's a whole bunch. Even the UN has actually gotten involved in trying to stop. And what's happening is that on X, there is free speech. It's not control. Now, when you have violent type of speech, that is different. That's not protected under the Constitution. If you're calling for death or anything like that against anybody, that's automatic censorship. We understand that, and that makes perfect sense. But when you notice Elon Musk, who bought the Twitter, opened the platform, and then he went through the Twitter files. I'm not sure if you guys actually sat down and listened to this stuff. My goodness. When you watch what these people are doing, they had given a portal to the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party was going to Twitter, and they were censoring any conversation about the vax. They were censoring anything that has to do with Hunter Biden laptops. It was out of control. The stuff that they were doing is unconstitutional. It's one of those things when you see, you're like, okay, this is not okay. I never experienced that level of censorship before. And it was so bad to the point where it's gotten me to a position where I'm like, you know what? Free speech matters. If we're going to preach the gospel, the 3 angels' messages, we need to be able to do this online. Some of these people wants to control the internet. There was another movement where they were trying to give you free internet. And most people didn't know this. If you were going to accept those free internet, it will also censor your speech because you will only have to speak based on the things that they agree with.
Yep.
And I'm so glad that it didn't go through.
They spent $180 billion.
Sounds like healthcare.
On the infrastructure. Yes. Now I'm going to go ahead and play I got two more vids. We're going to get into this. I want to share Sister White's writings on this as well. Let's get into this real quick. This last one.
Don't get it twisted. America has spoken. 8 years ago, it said we didn't want a woman to be president. Somebody who was super qualified.
Are you kidding me?
Especially when you compared her qualifications with the person she was running against. 8 years later, they have said, not only don't we not want a woman president, somebody who is super qualified, we also don't want a black woman to be president. And if the choice is between a qualified black woman with policies that would help most people and someone who is a racist and who is a convicted criminal, well, not convicted criminal, he's not, but he's convicted. 34 felony counts. Somebody who stole state secrets. Somebody who fomented an insurrection. If the choice is between her and him, we want him. Give us Barabbas. And so, people of God, please don't get caught up in the trivial and the superficial, talking about her policies and her support for abortion rights and gay rights was what did this. That's a cover for what's really happening. And we need to understand that we are living in perilous times. As your pastor, I have a responsibility as to help you navigate these perilous times. And I've got to tell you, it's even hard for me to wrap my mind around this. It's hard. But I still have to provide pastoral responsibility and leadership to you. I know in my head that in the long run, we'll be okay. But I need hope and strength and encouragement to make it through the here and now.
Wow. Well, so this is, anyone could answer this question. Are we here making fun of this pastor?
No.
Yeah, I don't think we're not making fun of him, but really the blatant way in which his presentation, the blatantly biased political view, is almost ludicrous. That's the thing.
I think there's a rap star called Ludicrous.
And it's not only that, but it's dangerous. It's going to, like we said earlier, there are people in that congregation who voted for Trump, who love Trump, and Trump does have very good policies, a very good, and that's his strong point, his economic policies. Now, in terms of his character and so on, there's a lot to be desired, but so it is with Kamala, but he has good economic policies, and this that we're looking at is something that needs to be addressed. Like I said, I called the president and tell him, look, you can't have your people doing this kind of stuff. Maybe you got to do a workshop for them or something. So you got to be careful on the internet, and you have to maintain a non-biased perspective. So I think what we're doing is very, very essential, because this thing is going out to a lot of people. It's brought a lot of questions in people's mind, and it's also fomented a lot of separation. Just like almost doing the bidding of what we saw in the newscast.
I'm coming back to that. I'm coming back to it.
Right.
I see this pastor as being the Candace Owens of the Democratic Party.
I don't know what to say about that one.
Yeah.
The Candace Owens of the Democratic. You see him as the Candace Owens?
Yeah.
This is a huge statement.
That's a very, that's, explain a little more, dig a little deep. Let's go.
Well, if you know anything about Candace Owens is straight up, Republican. Donald Trump cannot do any harm. And you know, and my dear colleague in ministry, he's just the same way. He's the same. He's doing the same thing as Candace Owens, except for he's rooting for the other side, and it's just so extreme and so divisive in a certain sense.
So you think, okay, I mean, I can see your play on it a little bit there. You know, he said quite a lot there. He said it's got nothing to do with the abortion or LGBTQ. All that is just a facade.
Yeah.
All that is just really nothing. You know,
insignificant.
It's
But Larry,
insignificant.
I sent you a link on Messenger. If you could pull that up, that would answer a lot of questions for you.
Oh, okay. I
just saw this earlier today.
All right, let me go ahead and get to that. When I get the next vid, I'll go ahead and pull it up. But again, you know, we are living in a time where people can see things. Think that the information is at your fingertips. And for somebody to say, you know what, as a Seventh-day Adventist pastor on the pulpit on the Sabbath, don't worry about what you saw. Don't worry about what you know. Don't let your lying eyes fool you.
Don't worry about those babies.
Don't worry about those babies. Don't worry about the mere fact that abomination is rife in our church, is rife in the world. Don't worry about none of that. But she was, we needed her. Maybe the rest of the world, all of America, chose a misogynistic, liar, racist, all these adjectives, but yet we chose Barabbas when we could have had somebody finish it.
Mary.
You said what now?
You said qualified. Sometimes I wonder, what do they mean by qualified? How do you determine a person is really good qualified and stuff like that? Like,
Right.
Because another thing too, I could not find any really good policies, because I went on her website and I was looking at what the policies were. There were nothing. It was more like a repetition of Biden's policies, and it was like really a short version of it. There was no major policies that you could look at and say, how will this help anything? How will this fix the economy? How will this fix the border? How will this fix our families? How will this do nothing? There was nothing there really. Like,
Right.
Kamala Harris had no policies to help making things better. Like, she was going to be an extension of Biden's administration. That's all it was going to be. And if people want that, you can just vote for it. But I that wasn't convincing to me. I was like, that's not really a good look. It seems to me it's just another extension of the same administration that we already have. It's like, why would we hire a person for the same job that they've been sleeping on the whole time? Every time they come to work, they're sleeping on the job. And then you give them a higher position to do the same work? That sounds crazy. Yeah. That's my perspective.
One of the problems is that as the people look back, if you've been there in the White House, the question is, what have you been doing? Don't tell me what you plan to do now that you're running for office. What did you do when you were there? And that was something that she could run away from, and so that's an objective criteria. You know what I'm saying? And when you back, you ask, what did she do substantially? Yeah, she did a few good things, I guess.
I think the gas went down a little bit.
Yeah,
that's because of that was because of the election day. It was coming very close.
Wait till January, you'll see.
Right.
They're gonna turn it back up again.
It's but brothers, the reason why I was really showing this pastor. Now again, you let your emotions out on the pulpit. That's something that he it may not be something that he normally does, right? He normally do, but he did it anyhow. And you have people in your congregation that may not agree with you, and now you have put them in a position where they cannot share that with you. They might be afraid to come and talk to you. right? Because of everyone is at edge right now. Everyone is, and I'm looking in the in the comment section, and I can see the edge is sharp, right? Everyone is at edge right now. Everybody's feeling a certain kind of way. But when the thing hits our church, we have to be able to cry aloud, right? Sound like sound like a trumpet.
Yeah, but we have deviated so far from the spirit of prophecy. You know, by doing that, you are just taking the spirit of prophecy and you're throwing it right into the round fowl. You're throwing it out. And, you know, because a lot of people know, you know, what the servant of the Lord had to say, you know, about this political thing. And for you to do that, you know, there should be some kind of reprimanding on the part, as you mentioned earlier, the leadership, you know, they just let anything slide. You know, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. That is the policy that we're running on among many of our pastors. You don't do whatever you want. We have the whole program pretty much outlined already, and you just don't have, you know, this kind of situation just running rampant like this.
No, you normally don't. And again, as I said before, it's causing separation in the church. It's already a hard thing for us to deal as families, where there's political racism going on. And political racism is happening in our church. I mean, racism is already a thing in our church. Now you want to compound that with political racism. Even in the homes. I mean, Pastor James showed me today that a family in Minnesota, the husband killed his wife and children and then killed himself because they voted for Donald Trump.
Oh, my gracious.
And then you have other families where a husband is being divorced by his wife because he voted for Donald Trump. You get all these families who are being disowned right now. And a lot of it is being pushed by our media. Pushed by the media.
And the media is controlled by the Roman Catholic Church.
Well, then again, that's the whole point. The point is, Pastor Green, we're not looking at that. We're not, when I say the bigger picture, when I say that we need to see that these things are breaking, that's the reason why Sister White says to stay away from this political business. These political games we got to stay away from, because what is causing, it is causing division within our church and our families, our homes, and our communities. And we're the ones that's feeling the pinch. We're the ones that's going to have a problem. Check this thing out, man. I'm going to go back to what Pastor Cuke has been talking about, but I'm going to show you guys this from a different point of view. Listen to this.
Welcome back. So it turns out every holiday season, political talk can be a tough topic to get into. But given the results of last week's election, Yale psychiatrist Dr. Amanda Calhoun suggested to Joy Reid that some people should sit this one out. Take a look.
There is a push, I think just a societal norm that if somebody is your family, that they are entitled to your time. And I think the answer is absolutely not. So if you are going into a situation where you have family members, where you have close friends who you know have voted in ways that are against you, like what you said, against your livelihood, and it's completely fine to not be around those people and to tell them why, you know, to say, I have a problem with the way that you voted because it went against my very livelihood and I'm not going to be around you this holiday. I need to take some space for me.
So,
Yeah.
what do you think?
I think everybody needs to do what's right for them. You know, I think you need to look into yourself, and if going to a family gathering or with friends where it's going to stress you out, then don't go. I'll tell you, Al has 5 children.
Your husband.
My husband has 5 children. Most of them or their spouses voted for Trump. The problem is those 5 children have 13 grandchildren he refuses not to see. and not to be part of their lives. And so for our family, I mean, he has told them, I will not let politics split up our family. Alan and I voted for Kamala, others didn't. He is going to see his grandchildren come hell or high water. That's the choice that works for him.
I'm all for healthy boundaries, but I tend to think mashed potatoes are the great equalizer. Like, you don't want to spend Thanksgiving by yourself because you can't set politics aside. Like, I find that every day in every job I've worked in social circles I've run in, I've been around people who have different politics than me, and it's never gotten in the way of having friendships with them. I wouldn't have had any friends.
I wouldn't have had any holidays if I had to only pick the ones where everyone agreed with me. And so now there are times,
Max wouldn't be with you.
I check in with myself and say, am I up for this? Because I also know struggling with mental health, there are times I'm not, and that's okay. You step away, but it will never be the defining point, because toxic personalities don't have political affiliations. It's a personality trait that sucks, and we all are related to people like that. So whatever your reason is, I would never let my politics be the reason I don't show up to see my family, because they won't always be there.
I'm going to disagree. I completely understand her point, because I really do feel that this candidate, President-elect Trump, is just a different type of candidate. From the things he's said and the things he's done and the things he will do, it's more of a moral issue for me. And I think it's more of a moral issue for other people. We're just, I would say it was different when, let's say, Bush got elected. You may not have agreed with his policies, but you didn't feel like he was a deeply flawed person, deeply flawed by character, deeply flawed in morality.
I think a lot of Dems called him deeply flawed and demonized him.
But you got to admit, they're very different figures. I mean, you along with Milley and along with John Kelly warned us about how deeply flawed he was as a candidate. And so I think when people feel that someone voted not only against their families, but against them and against people that they loved, I think it's okay to take a beat.
I don't have to like him to respect the voters.
Yeah, if it meant not seeing your children?
I appreciate the voters, but I will say, somebody who tells me that my child is wrong because of how he or she feels, that tells me that they shouldn't be allowed to be who they are with my permission, I have to question it. I don't want to put my kid in that position.
Exactly.
I don't want to put my gay child in a position where she has to sit with someone who doesn't understand her and feels like it's okay to just blurt all that out. That's just me. But I feel like that with mixed families, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
There are certain things where you don't have to put your family in the middle of it. You can have dinner at another point, but it might not be the time to gather because there's going to be some tension. That's what I'm saying. But I'm not tense. My daughter's not gay. I just want to say that so that my daughter doesn't say, Ma.
All right. So we're looking at a position where now, it's separate yourself from your family because you need a mental break because Trump won. If it was the other side, what would have happened? Would we be able to take a mental break? Does it matter? I mean, to me, what I'm saying is this. The devil is busy. The devil is busy looking to separate families. That's what he's doing. He comes to kill, steal, and to destroy. That's what he comes to. John 10, verse 10, right? Steal, kill, and to destroy. Jesus says, but I've come that you may have life and have it more abundantly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When can we, pull together as a body of people, as a church, to realize that we need more unity in the church? More times than not. We need to be able to pull together. This is where, Sister White talks about the journey, the narrow road journey, going up that hill where she saw the vision of God's people going up that narrow mountain. And the more narrow it became, the more they had to let go of their belongings.
Correct.
And there were many who was in the back that was looking at the light and they gave up They literally gave up and they just decided to fall. How many of us is in that position right now where we need someone else to give us that boost, someone else to give us an encouraging word, but many of us don't even trust each other because, one, our race issue, and two, our political position. When we get to this point, then we absolutely forget who Christ is.
Mm-hmm.
We totally block that out.
I think that video demonstrates the fact that The View is the voice of wokeism. It is any single entity in the media that has pushed the lifestyle that is anti-Bible, anti, just morality. The View. Now here and this is so hypocritical what was presented, because now she's saying that we should accept the other side, even though they might be of a different lifestyle. And how could we not accept the other side, even though they're of a different lifestyle? But now, because they have a different political view, now you can't even come and have dinner with me. Families can't come together.
Right.
I mean, that sounds a little hypocritical to me. I don't know if you gentlemen caught that drift.
Yes. Well, I caught that drift. I mean, husbands and wives, if your wife voted a certain way, then you got to tell your wife to get a hotel.
Why are we allowing politics to dictate what we do in the church? See, that's the thing that gets me. I mean, all of these mandates coming down from the government, we are implementing them in the church. It's the same with the situation with, I think it was one of my colleagues, and he took my side, when they had this issue. One of John, I can't think of the brother that died, but the communication went out to all the pastors.
You talking about Judge Floyd?
No, I'm talking about John. There was a person that passed away that was renowned. I believe he was in a publishing work, and he had passed away. And the Religious Liberties leader of the Northeastern Conference sent out communication to all the pastors that, that if you're vaccinated, you can stay for the funeral, but if you're not, you can come to the viewing, but you can't stay. And so even with this, and I'm saying, what is this? We are taking mandates and we're implementing them within the organization of our church and creating all of this division, that just bothered me to no end. And I think that even Pastor Cuke, you had a run-in, with the same situation. But we're seeing these things impacting the church, and we need to be very careful that we stick to our main objective as an organization and not allow these things to divide us. We got a job. We have a mission to carry out. We are God's remnant church, and we need to keep in mind that we have a very, very important obligation to get out to the world, that we are living under judgment. We don't have time to be getting caught up in all of this madness.
That's right.
Totally
agree. Interesting how quickly we allow issues to separate us. I mean, there are pastors who just stopped talking to me because I was on a different side of this COVID. I mean, we have allowed, we have forgotten the paramount position of, or the importance of brotherly love, and now, I mean, like I said earlier, a brother came up to me in my church and hopping mad. He said that anyone who voted Democrat was going to hell. I mean, and he was serious about it, and then like there are those who say the same thing on the other side. Anyone who votes Republican is going to hell. That is Satan's way of dividing and conquering. It's just another issue, that he brings on the table to to divide us, and we are for us to lift it to the level of the pulpit
And we're
and to
playing into it.
with tears in our eyes.
Mm.
So I mean, that have mercy.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is that, what about faith in God? You know, I mean, this is a promotion of fear. Now these people are looking for a terrible future because it's been presented to them that now the Republicans are in office, everything is going to go down to, it's going down the drain, and so now we are projecting this terrible fear. What then the Bible said? Perfect love casts out fear.
Right.
You know, we walk by faith and not by sight. I mean, I must be reading a different Bible.
Well, that's the thing. At this point, it's, people will think that we are Trump supporters. They will think that because we stand for certain principles, it just sounds like we're Trump supporters, but we're not. We hold the principles of the Word of God. And you're going to see some intertwining, of those principles because we don't believe in certain things. We stand for certain things. Here's the deal. I mentioned earlier about this UN situation. And I am of just a different person. I look at things differently. I come from a different angle. I don't go everywhere. I don't look at or travel everywhere everyone goes. Right? I've always been that way. I've always been the very curious person as to what's over there because everybody else is over here, but let me go check and see what's over there. That's been me. And I'm looking at this UN resolution. I'm looking at that because this is a major issue that had gone underground while everybody was watching something else, while everybody was paying it to, because this happened during the time when Donald Trump, and I believe it was Donald Trump and Kamala Harris had their debate. And while everybody was looking at the debate, everybody's pushing at the debate, this thing was, the resolution was passed. Nice and quietly. But I'm going to play it for everybody here again. Huh?
Distraction.
That's exactly what it is. I'm going to go ahead and play this. Let me go ahead and do something real quick.
Welcome back.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and play this this video. And let's see here. Here it is.
The motion is adopted.
Nous avons ouvert la porte. Il nous incombe désormais à toutes et à tous de la franchir, car il ne s'agit pas seulement de s'entendre, mais aussi d'agir. Et aujourd'hui, je vous mets au défi de passer à l'action.
He pretty much say that there's a new coming together with the United Nations and the WHO in formulating a new coalition. Of course, it's going to sound good, right? It's going to sound very good as to, we're working together for the common good for every nation. Am I somewhere around there, Pastor James?
I'm sorry?
I said, am I somewhere around there?
No, go ahead, keep going.
In terms of what he was saying, right? I mean, my French is not always that good anymore.
Yeah, it's pretty much talking about pushing a coalition together.
It's a coalition together, right? Yeah.
So the world's interests and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, so that was one. I'm gonna come again with another one here. Give me a second. Let's go ahead and look. I'm gonna show you the one now. Where they were, there it is.
Well, thank you for being here today for our press conference on what I describe as the most important issue that's getting the least amount of attention relative to its importance in our country. And like many other issues, we're going to be deciding on November 5 what kind of a country we're going to be and it applies to this issue as well. President Trump had withdrawn the U.S. from the WHO, and of course the Biden administration, like every other disastrous decision they made, reversed those policies when the Biden-Harris administration got in charge. Well, later this week, the UN is going to hold a, quote, summit for the future, and they're going to produce, this is right from their website, an intergovernmentally negotiated, action-oriented pact for the future with a chapter on transforming global governance. Ascending beyond the powers being sought by its subordinate agency, the WHO, the UN is seeking even broader and more powerful authority, as you will hear a lot about today. The Biden-Harris administration apparently intends to fully support the surrender and compliance of the U.S. to the UN in these endeavors. They are aligned with the international globalists that hate America, that hate the Constitution, that hate our founders, that hate our founding Judeo-Christian principles, and they want America to become like the rest of the world. They don't want us to be subordinate to or governed by our Constitution. No, they want America to be subordinate to and governed by the UN, the World Health Assembly, and the WHO. And in fact, they intend to join with others at the UN summit this week to vote to award additional powers to the UN Secretary General. They seek to facilitate the evolution of the UN from an international cooperative body to an international governing body. These powers would be triggered by any one of a number of so-called global emergencies, whether it was a so-called climate emergency, a health emergency, a cyber emergency, or a gun violence emergency, whatever that's supposed to be, a financial emergency, or whatever they deem appropriate. And the Biden-Harris administration is in full agreement with the UN and the WHO on efforts to place us under their authority and to require such things as their international health regulations, including the surveillance of U.S. citizens, the censoring of dissenting views, and much more. The American people didn't vote for this, and they don't support this, and it's up to the people's representatives, that's us gathered here today, to have a responsibility to expose this and to reject this. The U.S. should defund the WHO again. We should withdraw from the WHO. Any agreements with the WHO or the UN should require Senate approval or disapproval. And a bipartisan House majority voted to require Senate approval just last week with Tom Tiffany's bill on the House floor. So I'm proud to be joined here by my House colleagues and others who are appropriately concerned and educated, informed, and leading on this issue. Again, this is the most important issue that's getting the least amount of attention relative to its importance and its impact on our country and on the American people. And with that, I yield to the gentleman from South Carolina. They don't want us to be subordinate to or governed by our Constitution. No, they want America to be subordinate to and governed by the UN, the World Health Assembly, and the WHO. And in fact, they intend to join with others at the UN summit this week to vote to award additional powers to the UN Secretary General. They seek to facilitate the evolution of the UN from an international cooperative body to an international governing body.
From an international corporative body to an international governing body. That means this governing body can now pass and they can erect and pass laws. They can enact and pass laws. Okay? So when you hear that, when I heard that, I said, oh, okay, there it is. This is bigger than we think.
Correct.
When we look at the whole world will wander after the beast. When we look at this is a national, then an international Sunday law. When we hear those things, when we study God's word and we just think, oh, it's just going to be, the president has to pass this law. No, the president can only do one thing he can do is write executive orders. For the next 4 years, that executive order can stand, or the Supreme Court can shut that down. That's it. The Supreme Court can shut down an executive order. So if it goes against the Constitution, the Supreme Court can go ahead and shut that down. But when the UN becomes a governing body, There's no jurisdiction. There's no Supreme Court that's going to protect its people with its constitution. You want to know why? Because now we're on maritime law. And with maritime law, there is no Supreme Court. There is no jurisdiction where the law matters on this land. It's waters, is the law of the sea. And the law of the sea is a global governing law. So once the Sunday law is passed under maritime law through the UN, that's a global situation. We don't have no power to turn that back. Donald Trump did not do that. Kamala Harris did not do that. Joe Biden did not do that. Now, what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden is planning on doing before they leave out of office is to make sure that resolution that was passed by the UN is to make sure it's codified by the print of the president of the United States and the vice president of the United States. If they go ahead and sign this with the UN, then we know for sure. That's the biggest thing. That's it.
I think you're onto something, Larry.
This is the beginning
really
of the
are
end.
onto something. And also, what I'm also seeing, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. You heard about that. So they are supporting the Agenda 2030 as well.
Yes.
Which has at its root the climate change movement.
Yep.
And the climate change movement has a Sunday rest in it to give a day of rest to the climate so that, we can somewhat rejuvenate and heal the planet from gas emission, ecological sin, they call it. But nevertheless, so that looks more realistic to me. Somebody in the comments said, "Are you saying the president doesn't have any power?" I don't think that's what Larry said.
That's not what I'm saying.
The president cannot just enforce a law just like that without the checks and balances that are in place.
Presidents don't enforce any law. Okay, they don't make laws. They will sign an executive order, which is just he's the executive guy, he's making an order. But they do not write law. Legislation writes law. He can ask the legislation, he can ask Congress to write a law, to put a bill out there. They can do that. It has to go through the process. It has to get through Senate. The Senate has to confirm it. And then it has to get to the executor's desk. The executor can sign it, but when it gets to the Supreme Court, if it goes against our Constitution, which is still standing today, it's being chipped away, but it is still standing today. If it goes against the Constitution, then it goes nowhere. And oh, by the way, if the people don't want it, guaranteed those who are running for office would not pass it. You know why? Because the people don't want it. Again, Sister White said in Great Controversy, the impending conflict, last paragraph, it is going to be the people that's going to push this thing from the ground up, and it's going to be our politicians who are running that time. They're going to pick it up and go, I will run for this. Vote for me. I will pass it. That's what's going to happen.
But it has to take a strong enough event for that perspective to even become a reality.
Yes.
Like, you can't just say, "Oh, this is going to happen." Like, something has to happen. When you read Matthew 24, you see the signs of the times happening, right? There shall be signs in all of these things, and the stress of nation with perplexities and everything. It is like within the context of the signs, and all of a sudden there is, "You shall be persecuted for my name's sake." So you can actually see, even within that, a law to persecute God's people is connected to the signs of the times. And he was talking about earthquakes and everything else. So what I'm looking at from a perspective, even from the Great Controversy as well, we are told that that there's going to be a cry that we need to take the nation back to God, and those who will violate the Sabbath, and that these calamities will not stop until Sunday enforcement shall be strictly enforced.
And you just used the word, Pastor James, calamities. Pastor Green just finished saying climate, right? Correct. Now, what did that guy say standing outside? That once these things happen, who takes over?
The UN will take over.
There you go.
Enforce some type of, it makes sense. But I also see the people have to have a role to play in that.
Yes, they do.
There has to be some voting as well, because we are told we can vote against this in the future, right? There's going to be time we can vote against it. It might get struck down several times.
Right.
In Congress. So it's not going to just be an easy thing, or like we oftentimes think it's just going to go right through. No, there's going to be a lot of pushback as well.
That's my point.
But eventually,
it has to break the ceiling eventually, really quickly.
This thing was set up a long time ago. I mean, at the very birth of this nation, because, according to international maritime admiralty law, every corporation must have a president, a vice president, and must have a board of directors, which is our Congress. We were set up as a corporation. And so we are just following in the whole plan. The whole plan from this thing has been set up a long time ago, and we're moving in the direction of absolute, total dictatorial type of control.
That's where it has to go to. But the point we're trying to make, Pastor Green, is this: we've put a lot of our eggs in the basket because as Seventh-day Adventists, we look for the Sunday. I mean, that's what we. One thing that Pastor said that I agree with, the one that we were just looking at. That the devil has deceived us to just be looking at the Sunday law while all this other stuff is happening, right? I mean, that's true. That is very true.
Yeah.
We don't have a balanced outlook. And what I'm saying is this: we have to look at we have to start looking, ask God to start giving us avenues to look at. We're putting all our eggs in the basket for 2025 and a guy named Trump. And all of a sudden, this is the guy. This is him. And I'm saying, wait a minute.
The boogeyman.
Yeah, he's the boogeyman. But when I read the book Illuminati 666, it showed me a whole lot more webs. There's a lot more webs involved here.
Absolutely.
So and the book Sunday Law that's behind me, the National Sunday Law, there's a lot more webs.
And if you trace all of those webs, they go right back to
Rome. Right. So what I'm saying is this: yes, there's a Pastor James, you're right. Yes, there's the people component that has to go bottom up, right? And then there's a top down component, right? And then there's a big swell in the middle. Okay, and I said this many years ago. The trifecta: people bottom up, political stuff top down, and then that big swell. It's almost like taking one of those marshmallow sandwiches and you squeeze it, and what happens to the marshmallow? It starts to push out. That's exactly what we're going to see here. It has to be because the devil's not going to just leave one thing one stone unturned. No, he's making sure all angles, everything is a trap for God's people. Everything is a trap for God's people. If he just goes one way with Donald Trump, then all of a sudden, you know what? The people are going to say nope. And look how many Seventh-day Adventists will go voting if they see the Sunday law on a ballot.
One of the things you got to realize is that the reason why the people would respond is because they're manipulated from the top.
Right.
And it's a Hegelian dialect. And what we see happening, the fact that the World Health Organization has taken such prominence, because the United Nations is basically the police force for the World Health Organization to enforce their policy. And so the fact that they have taken so much prominence means that they're going to use this whole pandemic scheme again. It's coming. And so they've already done
monkeypox.
SARS. They did a drill with SARS. They call it SARS, and I forgot what. They're actually using it as an acronym. And they said we've done the drill, and they said in 2025, we're going to see another pandemic, and so when we see all these things coming together, because what's going to happen? We're going to see the suffering, the death, and all this stuff is going to come back, and then
they got to get rid of Pastor Q. They got to get rid of a lot of people because it is difficult to control many people. And the people that's actually doing this is a fraction of a percent.
Correct.
It's just mind-blowing how they're controlling all of this.
Right. You know why? Because you have the goyim and you have the mass. You have the goyim and you have the initiate. Okay? The goyim is the mass. The initiate is a very small number of people. That's what it is. That's what it is in the Illuminati. That's what it is in Freemasonry. We're the goyim, the dummies.
We're the useless.
The useless mass, right? While these elites, again, we don't see how this stuff is being played. I mean, we have to really do some real good researching and ask God again, Lord, help me to find, show me ways, show me what I'm looking for, what it is I'm looking for, because it's there, it's out in the open. These things are hidden in plain sight. In plain sight. How did you think that the UN passed a resolution that we slept on? And again, while everybody's looking at, this political race that just ended a week ago, we're all here now thinking about, well, wait a minute now, Donald Trump this and Donald Trump that. While the secretary of the UN General Secretary is sitting down laughing on, we have America. We have the sovereignty of America.
Mm-hmm.
We have the sovereignty of America,
Definitely.
and that's all that it is. Once they have the sovereignty of America, the Pope is the pastor of the UN. He is the clergy. He comes in. That's all that we need. So we have to start looking at things, from different angles. The Sunday law will take place. The prophecy must happen. We have to be watchmen on the hills of Zion. We got to be praying and fasting. All of these things have to be happening all at the same time while this world is spinning, when the sun comes up, when the sun goes down, stars, moon, and stars, the night stars and shining, all these things are taking place, and God is still saying, I have it all under control. But I need for you guys to go out there and still spread the gospel while you have a chance.
Amen.
Win souls for the kingdom while you have a chance. Brothers and sisters, any last words? Go ahead, brother.
What is the resolution? Is this resolution 242? Is that what it is?
I have it somewhere. Yes. Read it for me and I'll tell you.
Resolution 242? I need to look into this and do a video about this.
Yeah, look into that. I do have the paperwork. I have it.
Could you send that to me?
I can go into my files and send that to you.
Quickly, the one thing you forgot to speak about, which is most essential, we're looking at what's happening without. But what's happening within is even more crucial.
Right.
Like Jesus says in the book of First Timothy chapter 4, the Spirit speaketh expressly.
Oh, hold on. Wait. Just pause for a second. There's a reason why I'm telling you this, because I actually want to take you there. Because that's actually one of my scriptures that I was going to
say.
So no.
Yeah. I think the greatest fulfillment of Bible prophecy is actually what's happening.
You continue going. And I believe what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and take you there. So that way we have it. Please. Now go.
Go ahead. You go ahead. Yeah, the Spirit speaketh expressly that in a lot of times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, right?
Mm-hmm.
Speaking lies and hypocrisies and having their conscience seared with a hot iron.
There it is.
We're looking at what's happening politically, and that's fine. We can have our perspective and discussion differences and everything like that. And that's one side of the issue. We're looking at the natural world. So there's different ways you can look at the prophecies. When you look at Matthew chapter 24, you end up looking at 4 different areas of prophecy. There is the social aspect of prophecy. Mm-hmm. There is the natural aspect of prophecy. There is the political side of prophecy, but there is also the religious side of prophecy. So what's happening religiously is even more vital. I don't think the Lord is waiting for the next president to get his agenda going. Like, I don't think that's what the Lord is looking. I think the Lord is really looking at his church.
That's it.
Like when I look at things, I'm like, you think Donald Trump is what the Lord's been waiting for? Like, I don't think so.
He's waiting for his people to get ready.
He's small potatoes.
I think he's really looking at us as a people. Right. And when you connect that to Revelation chapter 7, 4 angels holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any trees, until we have sealed the servants of our gods in their forehead. It's like God's major concern is with his people. Like, right. God is like, yo, you guys are not ready. I'm trying to save as many as possible, because once there is a people ready to meet their God, once he can get his church where they need to be, we're still fighting about, is Jesus God? We're still having debate about whether the Holy Spirit is God. Like, we still can't even figure out what's going on with Ganun Diop. Like, we at a point now, it's like the kind of stuff we're fighting about inside. And I'm like, the enemies are consolidating. Like, we are being surrounded from without, but from within we are divided.
Right.
And I'm like, guys, like, it goes back to what Pastor Cook said earlier. like, you have to realize a lot of this stuff is distraction, and also it's the effort is to divide God's people. And Jesus in John chapter 17, his prayer is that we must become one. We must become united. There has to come a point where we put aside our differences and begin to unite in our love for each other, and really work this thing out and get this gospel out. Unless this is done, friends, I think we are in serious trouble. Because I think really the issue is what's happening within the church, and we have to look at that aspect of the prophecy as well.
On it, my brother. I do appreciate those last final words. Pastor Q, anything from you for, so we can close it out?
Well, I really want to say that we have to, we have to put God first. We have to put God first. We have to put our trust in Him. We can't walk in fear, and we can't, and put not your trust in princes. We trust in the Lord who made heaven and earth. And as long as we do that, we know that we will be more than conquerors.
That's it. Pastor Green?
Well, I think that we ought to be watchmen on the walls of Zion rather than the hills of Zion.
Okay. Did I say walls?
Said hills.
I said, okay, all right. The hills are, which one is higher, the walls or the hills?
That's all I have to say about that.
That's all I got to say about that.
We need strong prayer and fasting.
That's it. That's it. Hey, you know what, guys? Hey, listen, Mark Cook, I'm glad you mentioned that because I want to share with you something that we have here. We are looking to see if you guys would like to have one of these shirts. It says, I'm with MAGA. I'm with MAGA. All right. And, if you're with MAGA, then, you're doing the right thing. You are doing the right thing. Can anybody see this right here? I'm with MAGA. You're doing the right thing. The reason why you're going to be doing the right things, brothers and sisters, because we're all about making Adventists great again. That's what we're all about. Amen. We're all about making Adventists great again, and we are going to be putting these shirts out there very soon. We want you to get your orders in because we're going to have a lot of these. These are shirts that you can use to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. The reason is because just like many of you guys saw this right here and probably got triggered by seeing that I'm with MAGA, and there's some of you that probably think I'm with MAGA, with the Donald Trump MAGA, but no, I'm not. I'm with MAGA. I am. I'm all about making Adventists great again. And the whole point is when people see this, they're going to ask you the question, what's an Adventist? Amen. What's an Adventist? And this is the time for you to answer really quickly. Give him the quick 30-second speech about what an Adventist is.
Larry,
yes,
I understand that Pastor Cuke is going to be going to Hawaii. He need to order maybe about 1,000 of those.
Can I see the back of the shirt again, please?
Sure. Pastor Cuke, seriously?
I am going to Hawaii. I'll order 1,000 if Pastor Green pays for them.
Now, see, this is gaslighting.
Thank you. This is good.
Oh man! But listen, we need to get these T-shirts out there so that we can be witnesses for Christ. Somebody saw me with this shirt, and they got a little triggered because they saw that I'm with MAGA. And then when I walked away, they said, "Wait, what's an Adventist?" And I came back and I said, "Well, let me tell you what an Adventist is. Yeah, an Adventist." We are Adventists because we are waiting for the second advent of Jesus Christ and his return. And we believe in the seventh-day Sabbath because it is which that God had created and rested on that day and hallowed it. And that was all I said. And that was it. That was done. So we need to go ahead and get these shirts. Get these shirts. Another shirt that I have is a friend of mine made this shirt for me. She's out of Belize. And it's a wonderful shirt. It says in the front, it simply says, Sunday worship enforcement is the mark of the beast. Okay. Boom. And then behind it says, not force, but love pleads. So we want you to get these shirts. Reach out to me, give me your name, and make sure that you get on our list for these shirts. We're going to be making a lot more of these shirts. We want people to go out and be witnesses for Jesus. One more announcement to be made is for all of you who will be hanging out with us for the Thanksgiving Day outreach in Nashville at the Nashville Rescue Mission. We'll be there Thursday morning, Thanksgiving Day at 9 a.m. Please contact me or my wife. If you are willing to be a part of this, you will have to go on our website to register because we got to think about feeding people and how people are going to be fed. I don't have a lot of money, so please bring money for you to be fed. The place that we're going to be fed will be $40 a plate. That's it, $40. Or you can eat Thanksgiving food, a plate, and you'll be good. You'll be nicely fed. So if you want to come and hang out with us for this Thanksgiving Day outreach, Hope for the Homeless, that would be fantastic. Please, if you have any clothing, shoes, blankets, sweaters, jackets, pants, please let us know. We are collecting a lot of those items now, and we don't need anything old and raggedy. We would like to have some really good quality clothes because it's getting cold and the winter is coming. We want our folks to be warm, okay? So 9 a.m. start. Contact us, mcmstudies.com. You can go there at mcmstudies.com/events. You can also go there and donate as well, okay? Thank you, brothers and sisters, for that. $48, as my wife put out there, $48. Thank you so much. My wife will correct me because I don't know what I'm talking about most times. So that's why you have a wife.
The passage, Trump, is he the 47th?
47th. Yeah, we need 48.
You should have charged
$47. Yeah, it probably is $47 and $1 for a surcharge on your credit card.
Okay.
Okay. All right, brothers and sisters, how long will you halt between two opinions? If God be God, serve God. But if God be Balaam, serve Balaam. But as for me and my house, brothers and sisters, we will continue to serve the Lord. Thank you, brothers and sisters. Have a good night. Happy Sabbath to everyone. God bless you guys, and we'll be seeing you guys another. I think hopefully next week we should be around. I don't think we are out of town, but by God's grace, see you guys next week. To God be praised. To God be the glory.